Prick up your ears.
The sound of DTM.
My car sounds like music to my ears.
My favorite sound when the car is leaving the pits.
My favorite sound, the cheering of the fans. Crank it up.
My favorite sound? The silence before the lights go green.
Full blast.
Downshifting from full speed. When I rev up my engine to its absolute limit. Too close to cool. Cheering on the podium.
Be aware.
It's gonna be loud.
Here we are then qualifying for race 4 at Spielberg. The circuit situated in this beautiful scenery. And we are set for qualifying for race number 2 across this weekend. The second round, of course, having already been to Hockenheim for the season opener. And we're greeted with weather conditions on the second day of racing, somewhat different to the first day. To the second day of last year, I should say. Here on duty at that occasion was David Addison. It's a different track that greets us in terms of weather conditions.
There's barely a cloud in the sky. We are 700 metres above sea level here in Spielberg at the Red Bull Ring. It's a 4.3 kilometre circuit. The sun is shining, and one of last year's winners, Matthias Ekström, there is good to go, having had a pretty torrid time yesterday. Didn't qualify so well, got knocked into a spin at the first corner in yesterday's shorter race. It's a 20-minute session. It determines the grid for today's longer 1 hour plus a lap, including pit stop race. And yesterday it was very much a BMW dominated affair. Top 2 cars in the race, BMWs. Fastest 8 in qualifying through the speed trap, BMWs. It was only Eduardo Mortara who was able to uphold honours for Audi third, and Paul de Resta was the best of the Mercedes yesterday, way down in 7th. But let's see what this qualifying session has to offer in terms of a grid. Nico Müller there has had a pole position this year. We've got 24 drivers in the entry, only four of whom have not yet had a pole position in their DTM careers. So can we reduce that number at the end of the next 20 minutes? We'll find out.
So there we see Eduardo Mortara, then the car that split the BMW fest, if you like, right at the sharp end of the result yesterday. In the Audi, the cars all carry the weights that they raced in yesterday, but weights are reassessed when it comes to the race for today, dependent on how they qualify today. So the qualifying to set the grid for race number 2. Mike Rockenfeller's car comes out of the garage. We can see from our commentary position as we look at yesterday's race winner, Marco Wittmann, in that Red Bull BMW M4 DTM car. Marco Wittmann, of course, former champion, and under the sight of the Red Bull then. Here is the free practice results, and it was a bit of an Audi fest, wasn't it? Mortara green shied at Rockenfeller before we saw Paul de Resta, the best of the Mercedes, and the best of the BMW was on the podium yesterday, Tom Blomqvist.
That's right, he was second in yesterday's race. The BMWs, just going back to the point Dave Richardson has made about weights, which is based on yesterday's qualifying theoretical best lap times per mark. In short, it means the BMWs are 2.5 kilos heavier than the Audi and the Mercedes. It's not very much at all. Might hurt a little bit up the climb from turn 1 to turn 2, but for the rest of the lap, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. And yesterday, the BMWs, irrespective of the weight, very rapid indeed in the race. Fastest lap of the race, Matthias Ekström, as he tried to recover from his spin. He only got to 16th place, though. But of course, in that shorter race with no pit stops, it's hard to do much trick on strategy. It's purely down to your own pace and the DRS, which you can't use in qualifying, but you do, of course, get more uses of in today's longer race.
Yeah, it's a big ask in the shorter race, isn't it? But in this race, the longer of the two, with the mandatory pit stop, as you've said, be interested to see whether strategy can play a part. The cars queue up then as the light goes from red to green, and they are released from the pit lane. First to show then is Mike Rockenfeller. Then we see the twin Pink Panther cars, if you like, of Christian Vitoris and Lucas Auer.
Now, Vittori's had a pretty horrible time yesterday, didn't he? He was eliminated after a tangle with Daniel Junqueira. Vittori's drives a
Mercedes.
And Junqueira drives a
Mercedes.
So that'll have gone down well then.
Fair point. So you can see the cars coming out of the pit lane from the... I wouldn't want to be that cameraman, truthfully.
He's getting cold. He's a long way up. Timo Glock is getting ready to go. Go now. Thumbs up. So tyre warmers come off. And by letting him out a bit later, hopefully, the team have got him out of traffic. We'll see whether that works. There is Paul di Resta, winner of Hockenheim in the second round. He's ready to go. Just quickly before we get into times, just to explain where we are in the championship after yesterday. Paul di Resta that now leads Eduardo Mortara, 3 points betwixt the two. Marco Wittmann is third. He's a point ahead of Robert Wickens, who is only a point ahead of Maxime Martin, who is only a point ahead of Tom Blomqvist, who's 4 ahead of Nico Muller. Then it's Augusto Farfus, Gary Paffett, 9th, equal with Timo Glock. They ran out the top 10 scorers. In fact, in fairness, Gary Paffett, Timo Glock and Martin Tomczyk, I should say, all tied on 12 points. Tomczyk had a pretty decent run yesterday. Yes. Gary Paffett had almost a day from hell. Electrical problems in free practice stopped him and meant that he struggled in qualifying, and in the race again he didn't really make very much progress because of the troubles of overtaking with all the aero, and so 18th was poor reward for Gary.
Yes. So there is Mike Rockenfeller then. He was the first to show, and he will give us effectively what will be a benchmark time for us to look at. Expect the time to come tumbling down, but of course the qualifying session is very, very short, merely 20 minutes, and there's also not much time between qualifying and the race itself. So any issues that perhaps are found in qualifying, the teams don't have an awful lot of time to put those right. So there's Mike Rockenfeller then around the Remus turn and heading now towards turn 3. They start to go downhill. Mike Rockenfeller then, former champion.
Yesterday, as is the norm, most drivers did 2 runs. They had one set of tyres, pitted, fresh set, back out again. And Mike Rockenfeller, one of the drivers, that was saying that the track seemed to be quicker in the first half of the session than the second. So most times were set on a driver's first run.
Early, yeah.
So one driver that gambled, only doing 1 in the second half of the session, Christian Vittoris, ended up at the back of the grid because the track was slower. And I wonder, admittedly, it's a different day and different time of day for qualifying, but I wonder whether everybody will go out and try and make sure they get a banker run in, just in case the track does lose pace later on in the session. So as you say, Dave, Mike Rockenfeller is going to offer up the target time, heading up behind Maxi Goetz there. Maxi always has a big fan club in Austria and drove pretty aggressively yesterday. Mike Rockenfeller offers up a 1:26, but straight away Christian Vittoris, who's not leaving it to chance today, has done a 25.8.
On board with Maxime Martin then, as he rounds the final turn. With 2 purple sectors, he's going to go to the timing line, and I predict that he will vault himself up the order. Indeed, he goes P1 with a 1:23.241. 1:23.241. Incidentally, Gary Paffett was P2, now has dropped down to P3 because it's Antonio Felix da Costa for BMW, who is second fastest. Then we see Robert Wickens, who's vaulted, if you like, his mark mate of Gary Paffett.
Actually, at one stage, Paffett was the quickest, and then Martin came along, and the rest all behind pushed him further and further and further down. Nico Muller has just gone second for Audi, and then who else is setting target times now? Jamie Green has put a lap on the board, so almost everybody is out there. Looking down into the pit lane, can't see any stragglers, so I think everybody is on track. Lucas Auer, the Austrian driver, of course, eager to do well on home soil, but struggled yesterday. He was 21st and ahead of only one other finisher who had been given a drive-through penalty, so it really wasn't the best of days.
It's not looking like a bad lap from Lucas Auer, of course, got a big fan club here, local driver. So Lucas Auer then, 21.8 sector 1, 36.7 fastest of anybody through sector 2. He's got Augusto Farfus ahead of him, but far enough away where he shouldn't compromise this lap. Here comes Lucas Auer then, heading for the timing line now, and he goes P4. So the best of the Mercedes at the moment, although he's immediately vaulted by Gary Paffett.
Martin Tomczyk is under investigation for blocking another car. Number 100 this year, Martin Tomczyk. He carries that number for BMW's centenary, and he is under investigation for allegedly blocking another car. Jamie Green here, who was a race leader in the first race in Austria a year ago, but then had a gearbox problem starting lap 2 and ended up not finishing. Well, he's looking quick now. So also is Marco Wittmann, who's just done an absolute best sector 2 time. Timo Glock an absolute best in sector 1, but let's see where Jamie Green feeds in first of all. He comes up towards the timing line. He was 16th. He goes through, goes quicker, goes second. 1:23.121. You've got Adrien Tambay also looking pretty rapid as he goes fastest of all. Tambay has been really good around here.
Yes, he has.
Didn't race that well after a bit of a slow start yesterday, and he lost places, but he was very good in qualifying yesterday. And early doors in this session, the London-based Frenchman showing well again. It's Tambay, Wittmann, Da Costa, Green. No, it's not. It's Tambay, Wittmann, Da Costa, Blomqvist, Green, Rockenfeller, the top 6.
So on board with Timo Glock then, who is currently P5. Ahead of Jamie Green, and we watch Mike Rockefeller as he crosses the timing line now, and he goes P3. So Adrien Tambay then with the 1:22.910, the quickest in qualifying thus far, and we have just under 14 minutes left to run.
He's quickest, but only by 51,000, so there's not much in it. As you look at Mike Rockefeller, now there's somebody else on the demon lap because Nico Müller has done an absolute best sector 2. Müller, you're riding with him, is 12th at the moment. He was a little bit down by 2/10 in sector 1, but as I say, the absolute best in sector 2. So the Playboy Audi should be on for an improvement here as he works his way up towards the line. Da Costa has just gone quickest for BMW at 22.7. Over the line goes Müller, and that only puts him 7th fastest actually, 23.096. Not as good as I was anticipating. Da Costa, Tambay, Wittmann, Rockefeller, Farfus, Blomqvist, Müller, Glock, Green, Mortara, the top 10.
And Green just goes to P2 and merely a 10th behind Antonio Felix da Costa. We're on board with Eduardo Mortara then, who's done 2 PBs as he heads towards the timing line. That was P10, and he is going to be now P6.
Slowest is at the moment Paul de Resta. Just ahead of him is Gertz. Just ahead of him is Vitoris. Just ahead of him is Ocon. So you've got 4 Mercedes down at the bottom of the times. I'm sure that'll shuffle before the very end, but we are approaching the halfway point. You made the remark earlier that it's a short, sharp session, and it really is putting the emphasis on the teams. That's one of de Resta's problems in this session, that he's had a trip across the beach. So that gives a bit of a lap or so to clean the tyres next on the list of things to do. Christian Vitoris pits, so going on to a second set of tyres. That's Paul de Resta in replay, getting it wrong, coming out of Verth through the gravel, back on track. Daniel Juncadella, hard at work, the Spaniard, 15th he is. Da Costa is in, the current pole position driver. And way, way, way wide goes Juncadella. Breaks the beam now, and that lap for him keeps him 15th fastest.
This is Tom Blomqvist then, who took P2 in the race yesterday. He's currently P9. He's done 2 PBs in the first 2 sectors. Tom Blomqvist then, livery for that car this year, running the livery that was most associated with Marco Wittmann, who of course was P1 in the race yesterday. So Blomqvist rounds the final turn and will head for the timing line. He was P10. Stays there with a 1:23.118, not improving. So it's Antonio Felix da Costa for BMW who is the quickest. We're on board with Paul de Resta now, who is right at the bottom of the chart.
We've just had an improvement from Matthias Ekstrom up to 7th, winner here last year. De Resta goes through up to 18th, but at the moment the best Mercedes is only 14th, and that is Robert Wickens.
So Paul de Resta, we heard on team radio, being told to box this lap. And there is Marco Wittmann, who's currently P5. PB in Sector 1 for Marco Wittmann, former champion, of course. With the Red Bull livery for this year. It was poetic yesterday, wasn't it, that he took the win at the Red Bull Ring with the Red Bull livery. Marco Wittmann is Sector 2, not so good. Antonio Felix da Costa then with a 1:22.734, the quickest car. It's BMW, Audi, BMW, Audi, BMW, BMW, Audi, and as you rightly said, it's Robert Wickens before we find a Mercedes car.
Jamie Green has just pitted as you look at the sparks flying spectacularly from under Marco Wittmann's BMW. Rounding the final corner at the Red Bull Mobile Curve. Now, how is Maxi Gertz getting on? He's only 22nd, unfortunately. He raced pretty well yesterday, although as the race went on, he did get mugged a little bit,
yes,
elbowed down the order. So the pit lane is getting busier and busier as people go onto a second set of tyres. Tom Blomqvist has just come in, so also has Matthias Ekström. And Gertz shaves the grass as he dives for the pit lane. Of course, there's an extra reason for doing this, because it gets people used to making pit stops for the race this afternoon.
Yes. So there is under 10 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, which sets the grid for the race to come later this afternoon.
I think I said that Jamie Green had come into the pit lane. He had, but he's not yet got to the team because he was one of the cars randomly waved to the scrutineering bay. So that cost you another minute and a half or so while the technical team checks whatever needs checking. Only then are you released. So it all eats into that limited 20 minutes.
Nico Muller bailed that lap, which surprised me because he'd done PB Sector 1 and best of everyone in Sector 2. But there is Nico Muller. We stay on board with him as he makes his way down the pit lane now. 14 app driver. So 9 minutes remaining, that's all. There's going to be some last minute lap dash for cash, isn't there, in terms of qualifying, which at the moment is Antonio Felix da Costa right at the top, as we see Wolfgang Ulrich.
If he stays out, Mike Rockenfeller could be one to watch on this lap,
right?
Because he's been looking good in the sectors and he doesn't stay out. So, like Muller, he had done the absolute best middle, but then bails. So that means that there isn't a car on the road at the moment.
Right.
Gary Paffett there, another one look coming out of the scrutineering bay to allow him out. So Rockenfeller has to be held. So both of them losing time. Now Gary has to find a gear, which he does, sets off. Rockenfeller on his way now down to the Phoenix team and Moser squad. Gary Paffett driving for ART.
As you're saying, time is very, very precious, isn't it? And that random into the scrutineering bay just adds a few seconds, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It all eats into it. So this is the calm before the storm. As I say, the track now does not have a single car on it. And you know what's going to happen. They're all going to go out en masse and moan about traffic. We had Martin Tomczyk under investigation for blocking. We'll see whether anybody else has that in part 2 of the session. We've got one car going down the pit lane. In fact, Tomczyk is on his way out now. There's also one of the 2 Pink Panther Mercedes. So Vitoris and Auer getting ready to go back into the session. That was Gary Paffett in slow motion at turn 1. With the best of the Mercedes, Robert Wickens now down to 15th. He was 14th when we last checked it. So Mercedes didn't have a great day yesterday, but 7th in the race was better than they're staring at in qualifying. That's Esteban Ocon going rally crossing, coming out of turn 3. So there's one fascination now as to what the order is going to be, but also just where are we going to get the best Mercedes at the end of the session. It's not looking great with 7 minutes to go.
No. So the time to beat then, the 1:22.734, which was set by Antonio Felix da Costa. And from our commentary position, right opposite the pit garages, we can see another couple of cars. There hasn't quite been the mad rush out that we expect with just under 7 minutes. There is Martin Tomczyk, who David had observed on his way out. And what the advantage Tomczyk will have now is relatively clear track.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be on a flying lap as others are on an installation lap coming out of the pit lane, so it can go against you because you've got to be mindful as you're putting everything on the line that others aren't at a full pace. They'll be on a start-up lap, as it were. So Paul di Resta makes his way up the pit lane. Very narrow, that. The barrier turns you on the inside of turn 1. Don't cross the white line.
It's the only car which was out there on the flying now.
Timo Glock being given instruction. Timo third fastest. Jamie Green, who yesterday was a little bit modest, wasn't he? 18th in qualifying, 14th in the race, currently second fastest. Jamie went well here in terms of qualifying pace last year.
So Tomczyk, as you say, now he's on a flying lap. He's actually catching these and having to pass these that are on their first lap out, aren't they?
Right, yeah. And Tomczyk at the moment, he's only 17, so he needs to get something in here to get him up the order. Yeah. Especially if he's going to end up with any sort of penalty if he is found guilty of blocking later on. The stewards are going to have a look at that in the break between now and the race. In the very corporate colours, the number 100 BMW. Drops downhill. This year, Tomczyk in the Schnitzer car, Charlie Lamb's team. Comes through Verf up towards the Rindt curve now. So pretty much everybody except Maxi Gertz, I think, is on track. But looking down to the pit lane. Gertz is ready to go. So here comes Tomczyk then. Middle sector not great because of the traffic. So is it going to be an improvement? 17th he was at the start of the lap. He goes through, stays 17th. Matthias Ekström, 8th fastest. And Daniel Juncker-Deher has just done the absolute best first sector. Now, that might have been with the help of a toe, but even so, in qualifying, it's very, very important to try and get that if you can. So Juncker-Deher's lap's going to be worth watching. Eki has done at a personal best, but a little bit down in the second sector. He's lost 2/10 in that middle sector, hasn't he?
So we watch Matthias Ekström then. Running a bit wide there.
Yeah, absolutely, and there.
Yes. We'll go against him, that's for sure. So Matthias Ekström doesn't improve with that 1:23.364.
Second best Mercedes is Esteban Ocon. He's just improved to 23.278. He's only 1,000th behind the more experienced Robert Wickens. So very, very close between the two of them. Here comes Juncker-Deher, who is also down in the middle sector, and that's ruined that lap for him. But Tomczyk has just done the absolute best sector 1. So let's just tick Juncker-Deher over the line, see where he goes. If he does improve at all, he goes by, no, stays 17th. But again, intriguingly, Tomczyk, absolute best sector 1, down in sector 2.
Okay, here's Maxime Martin then, 2 PBs in, and he does improve. He goes to P10 now for Maxime Martin.
Despite losing ground in the last sector. Tomczyk didn't improve, 18th he is. So his lap started well and then unravelled. And we've only got 3.5 minutes on the clock. Quirky second half this, that people could do sectors but not lap times.
Yeah,
whether that's just down to traffic, don't know. But Spengler there, you've got 15th in the BMW Bank M4 DTM, downhill, rides it wide over the curb. So there are lots of individual green sectors, but very few improved lap times. Nico Müller has done 1, he's now 7th in the Audi. And still the best Mercedes is 14th, Robert Wickens. He's ahead of Spengler, I think, now. He's actually got himself up the order. Another improver, Timo Scheider, has just gone 12th. Spengler 16th at the start of the lap, runs wide up towards the timing line now. He has done 2 absolute bests. He goes over the line and goes 3rd fastest at 1:22.845. That's more like it from Bruno Spengler.
Yeah, good effort from Bruno Spengler on board with Timo
Bruno,
Glock
we are
now.
tight on timing, so you have to push all the way through. Push all the way through. You're doing good job. You're P3.
So Spengler being told where is that. Timo Glock then with 2 PBs in sector 1 and sector 2. Runs wide, approaching the final turn. Here comes Timo Glock then. Oh, he just gets a bit, the back end stepped out a little bit. He was P5, but Timo Glock recovers to go P2 with a 1:22.749. So it's BMW, Quelle surprise.
Audi 4th, BMW 5th, Audi 6th, BMW 7th, Audi 8th, BMW 9th, Audi 10th. Very sideways Timo Glock then, on target for second. It was a very good save indeed, that, yes. Just had another improver. Mike Rockenfeller is 9th at the expense of Wittmann. There you see the arm twirling going on inside the car.
Mike Rockenfeller is under investigation for blocking potentially as well.
There's Tom Blomqvist, 2nd in the race yesterday, only 13th at the moment, but 2 personal bests, I should say, for Tom Blomqvist. Timo Scheider 13th, and again Blomqvist, another driver being a bit ragged at the last corner. Is that going to be an improvement? Let's see. Goes over the line. Yep, up to 8th fastest, and Wittmann has just done the absolute best in the first sector.
And now the fastest Mercedes is the local boy, Lucas Sauer. P15.
Come of the hour.
Thank you. So Green, Da Costa, Glock, Martin. So Jamie Green now at the top of the 1:22.680.
Wickens and Juncker-Deher ahead of Lucas Sauer in the Mercedes battle. Rockenfeller being reported to the stewards, as you just saw on the strap, and Wittmann has done an absolute and a personal best. Now, he has got to find just over 2/10 of a second to get himself onto pole, where Jamie Green is now. Jamie Green has done a 1:22.680.
So here is Marco Wittmann then, the winner yesterday, heading towards the timing beam then. Yes, Mike Rockenfeller ahead of him. Where is this going to put Marco Wittmann? Well, he didn't find what he needed in that final sector. In fact, he was a bit scrappy, so doesn't improve.
But Jamie Green then, provisional pole position driver by 0.02 of a second from Antonio Felix da Costa. That is how close it is. And then 5th and 6th, Mortara and Farfus tied on time. They have done to the 1,000th the same lap time. The one that sets it first gets the grid position, the higher grid position. But at the moment then, you've got Mortara and Farfus kind of 5th equal. Now Wittmann's having another crack at this, Dave. He's done another absolute best in Sector 1 and the checkered flag is out. So it's now or never for Wittmann.
Well, from P22 on the grid, Gary Paffett is already back in the car into the garage. So, torrid time for Mercedes-Benz, that's for sure. Antonio Felix da Costa then, who was at the top of the chart, stays P2 with the 122.709, vaulted by Jamie Green from Audi. Here comes Marco Wittmann then. As you say, best of anyone in Sector 1, but not so. He let it slip a bit in Sector 2.
Copy box.
Lap aborted.
Not going to see any more from Marco Wittmann, are we?
So Jamie Green takes...
So Rocky ahead, slowing down in his opinion.
And Rockefeller being reported to the stewards, as you'd said. So Jamie Green then, a 10th career pole.
Fantastic. And what it has done is put an Audi on pole position, followed by 3 BMWs. We see another Audi before another 3 BMWs. And P15 is the best Mercedes-Benz. And the best Mercedes-Benz driver, Robert Wickens.
Ahead of Junqueira, our Gertz, Ocon, Vitoris, Paffett, De Resta. So Paffett and De Resta having a dreadful qualifying session for reasons really yet to be explained, because you've got all the Mercedes in big strife there.
Yeah. So as we watch our pole sitter Jamie Green, the delight on the pit wall.
There's Ensign of the Phoenix, of the Rosberg team rather, very, very happy man. Jamie Green then, ex-Mercedes racer in the DTM, now very much part of the Audi family, celebrating a pole position. But we've been here before. Can that be converted into a race win? He was very unlucky last year in the Saturday race, particularly when he led at the end of lap 1, and then the electrical gremlins for the downshift kicked in, and that was the end of his race, effectively. So Green, Da Costa, Glock, Martin, Mortara, Farfus, Spengler, Blomqvist, Rockefeller, Wittmann. Interesting mix, that top 10 across the Audis and the BMWs. But you need your binoculars to go back and find the Mercedes, don't you? 15th, Robert Wickens, the best of the 3-pointed star drivers.
So there, confirmation of where we're at. Green, Felix da Costa, Glock, Martin. Mortara, Farfus, Spengler, Blomqvist, Rockefeller, Wittmann, Ekstrom, Tombe. Mercedes not even making it onto the first page. And we see Nico Müller, Timo Scheider, and then the best of the Mercedes is Robert Wickens, and then it's Junqueira and Lucas Howell, then Tomczyk, Gertz, Molina, Ocon, Vitoris, Paffett and De Resta. 2 stalwarts, if you like, of DTM right at the back of the pack. And Paul De Resta, of course, off the back of a victory at Hockenheim. This track not suiting those Mercedes cars by like some measure.
Does not look like it.
Super slow-mos of the top 3 then from that qualifying session. And P3 it is for the BMW driver Timo Glock, former Formula 1 star, of course. Let me see Antonio Felix da Costa, who will go P2. And just while we're watching these super slow-mos, another one under investigation for potential blocking was Esteban Ocon.
Right, which might have been after he had his gravelly moment, I suppose, getting back on the road. But Jamie Green, 10th career pole position, and one of 3 Audi drivers in the top 10. The other 7 drivers all being in BMWs. So now the theoretical best lap times will be looked at, and the weights decided for the cars to carry going into the race this afternoon. What's going to be fascinating, Dave, is to see what now, come the race, Mercedes can do on strategy.
Yes.
To try and salvage a result out of this.
It's going to have to be strategy, isn't it? Because sure as heck it hasn't been delivered during qualifying.
It's not pace.
No, unfortunately. There's Matthias Ekstrom. Goes from P11 again. Another one of the long-time campaigners in DTM. And conversation going on between Timo Glock and Antonio Felix da Costa.
2nd and 3rd, respectively. Yes, you can either say Matthias Ekstrom, DTM double champion, only 11th, or Matthias Ekstrom, World Rallycross Championship leader.
Yeah.
Because that's the other hat that he wears with his successful eponymous team in World Rallycross. This is how they will line up for round 4 of the championship. Jamie Green will start on pole position with Antonio Felix da Costa just 2 thousandths slower.
Very close indeed. It's Timo Glock going from P3 with Maxime Martin, the Belgian, P4.
5th is where you find 3rd in the race yesterday, Eduardo Mortara. Augusto Farfus starts 6th.
We go to the next row of the grid where we find Bruno Spengler P7 and yesterday's P2 place, Tom Blomqvist.
Mike Rockenfeller and Marco Wittmann are 9th and 10th. Wittmann yesterday's race winner.
To the 6th row of the grid we find Matthias Ekström and Adrian Tombe,
who faded a bit as the session wore on, but he out-qualified Audi colleagues Nico Müller and Timo Scheider to round out the top 14.
Then we see the best of the Mercedes, Robert Wickens, going from P15 and Daniel Juncadella alongside him.
Lucas Auer ended up 17th. Martin Tomczyk a long way back for his BMW, 18th fastest.
A lot to be done in the race for Maximilian Gertz going from P19 and Miguel Molina then alongside him, running out the 10th row.
His session never really got going, did it, Molina? But he was ahead of Esteban Ocon and a troubled Christian Vitoris. And then
2 Mercedes at the back and 2 big stars as well, Gary Paffett and Paul di Resta. That's the way they line up. So strategy thinkers set to work in Mercedes-Benz between now and the start of the race for sure. Weather conditions set to be absolutely fine. So a lot of thinking to be done. Thanks for watching qualifying. We'll see you for the race in but a while.